Hello, I would like to read you a story from the Charter for Children's series. The Charter for Children introduces children to the basic principles of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Each story is set in a different province or territory of the country, and each addresses a different right or freedom in the Charter. The series seeks to empower children by providing them with a basic awareness of their rights and by fostering a respect for the basic values that Canadians cherish. The Charter for Children, The Plight Beneath the Northern Light, The Right to Meet and Form Groups, written by Dustin Milligan, illustrated by Corey Tibbetts. In a time not so long ago, on the ice of Hudson Bay in Nunavut, there lived a polar bear named Iquistekak. And I apologize for my reading and pronunciation of names. This is not my strength. Iski was worried. The Polar Oil Company had discovered oil beneath the ice of her hometown. The company was going to start drilling into the ice to get the oil out. The company would bring lots of toonies to her hometown, and the polar bears loved toonies, especially since their picture was on them. But getting the oil out would also cause great problems for the environment. Ixie learned that Mayor Agnajuk for short, had arranged the deal with the Polar Oil Company all by himself. He hadn't discussed it with any of the bears on Hudson Bay. Iski wanted to gather her community together to discuss the company's plans. She wanted to make sure that the environment was going to be safe and clean. But this was no easy task. Mayor Angjuk was a clever mayor. He didn't want the community to meet with the Polar Oil Company. He was more interested in making lots of toonies than in protecting the environment. So he pretended that the ice would break if too many bears gathered on it at once. He posted the 2-bear rule on the town's largest iceberg in the center of Hudson Bay. It read, "To ensure safety of all bears on the bay and to prevent the ice from giving away, there is a new rule that all bears must obey. Bears are restricted to groups of 2. The polar police are watching you. If you gather with more bears at one time, your fur will be shaved and you will be fined." The 2-bears rule was causing major problems. One day, Iski's best friend, Pekin, invited 3 pals to his igloo. They sat around playing a game of Trivial Pursuit. Pekin asked his friend, "What is the oldest company in Canada?" Before his friend could respond, there was a knock on the door. The Polar Police entered. The Polar Police arrested all 4 bears. They fined the bears 2 toonies each and shaved off all their fur. The chief of police said, "You know the rule. Bears can only meet in a pair. You broke the law. Now you'll freeze with no hair." Even some members of the Polar Police were concerned about the harsh 2-bears rule. The chief of police asked the mayor if he would reconsider the rule. But the mayor said, "I'm the mayor. I won the election. The police are under my direction. In order to make lots of loonies and toonies, we need the rule to prevent objection." And so the Polar Oil Company began to build giant drills. Mayor Angjuk welcomed the Polar Oil Company as it grew bigger and bigger. Soon the company would start drilling holes in the center of Iski's hometown. And they hadn't discussed the plans with anyone but the mayor. Mayor Angjuk stood on the large iceberg and reminded the bears, "To ensure safety of all bears on the bay and to prevent the ice from giving away, there is a new rule that all bears must obey. Bears are restricted to groups of 2. The Polar Police are watching you. If you gather with more bears at one time, your fur will be shaved and you will be fined." After drilling began, all the bears in town became very worried about the problems the company was causing to the environment. The polar bears had a tradition of going out on the land where they hunted and fished to feed their families. They often sat on the edge of the ice with their long fishing rods to catch fresh salmon. Salmon was one of their favorite foods. One day, while they were fishing, a bear reeled in a nice big salmon, but the salmon was shiny and black. When the bear touched the salmon's skin, he discovered that it was covered in oil. The location of the drilling was also causing complications for the annual dog sled race, the Hudson Bay Quest. The race took the same route every year from Churchill all the way to Aravat. With the Polar Oil Company drilling in the middle of Hudson Bay, bears competing in the race would have to take a long detour. One day, Iski went figure skating on the ice. It was a beautiful day and the ice was shiny. But when Iski attempted to twirl, she fell flat on her tail. There was oil all over the ice. With anger, she shouted, "We bears must do something and do it quick. Nanook is a crook and it's making me sick." Iski decided to meet with her friend Pekin at Tim Hudson's. As she drank her iced coffee, she said, "Oh, Pekin, look what happened to your fleece. You gathered with friends but met the police. This town is in so much trouble. I think I need another double. Pekin took a sip of his coffee to keep him warm. He said to Iski, "We must find a way for all bears on the bay to meet and band together. We must stay strong and think hard and long of something very clever." They both knew that only a large group of bears could challenge the mayor and his plans for the community. Iski and Pekin sat and wondered. On the television, Sheila Pat-Pluche was speaking about global warming. As Iski watched, she was inspired. She said, "We can lift up our paw without breaking the law. If we meet in groups of 2, while we meet in pairs, we can tell all the bears to meet at a time on cue. If we're all together, it won't matter whether the chief of police is in view. With so many of us demanding what's just, there'll be nothing that they can do." That day, Iski and Pekin put their plan into action. They met in pairs with all of their friends, neighbors, and family members. Iski visited her neighbor Inukwati and said, "This town must form an association. We need to express our frustration. Join our group. It's grave as can be. We must meet and speak with the company." Pekin visited his aunt at Smack and said, "We need to gather. This is your warning to save our bay or we'll be mourning. Please sign here and every bear on the bay can meet with the mayor without delay." By meeting in groups of 2, Iski and Pekin spoke with all of their friends, neighbors, and family members. Almost every bear on the bay agreed to join the new group. They called themselves Green Fleece. The members of Green Fleece agreed to gather at Katamekvik, the meeting place, on the following day. The next day, the members of Green Fleece met in the center of town. Ixie had finally achieved her goal of bringing her friends, neighbors, and family members together. As they gathered, Iski and the bears of Green Fleece worked together to write a new rhyme for the iceberg. The polar police simply stood by and watched. There were too many bears to control. When the rhyme was finished, Iski tore down the 2 bears rule. She replaced it with a new rhyme that read, "We are Green Fleece and demand a say in our environment and our bay. All bears have joined hands with stands and demands to save these lands from the mayor's hidden plans." Mayor Anajuk was shocked. Almost the entire community had gathered together. They hadn't fallen for his tricks. In fact, even the chief of police had decided to join Green Fleece. With his paws in the air, the mayor said, you're right, I see your plight. I've finally seen the northern light. The community must have a say in our bay. We must work together without delay. Soon thereafter, Mayor Anajuk planned a meeting to discuss the town's concerns. Representatives from the Polar Oil Company discussed their plans with the members of Green Fleece. Together, they hoped to find a solution for the good of the whole community. The mayor even served Tim Hudson's coffee. Iski raised her cup in the air and said, raise your cup to the bears of Hudson Bay. Together we are stronger, and for all the days longer, no bear or mare can stand in our way. There we go. So there's a note for parents and teachers here, which I'll read as well. This story seeks to teach children about freedoms and assembly association, which are guaranteed by sections 2C and 2D of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. These sections provide that everyone has the following fundamental freedoms: freedom of peaceful assembly and freedom of association. Freedom of association provides individuals with the right to establish, to belong to, and to maintain an organization. Freedom of assembly is closely linked to freedom of association and provides individuals with the right to meet as members of a group or organization. The essence of these freedoms was captured by John Stuart Mill, who wrote, from the liberty of each individual follows the liberty, within the same limits of combination among individuals, freedom to unite for any purpose not involving harm to others. There are many historical accounts where the freedoms to assemble and associate have been restricted in order to silence opposition. In Canada, such restriction was imposed in Quebec with an act to protect the province against communistic propaganda in 1937. The law sought to control communism by restricting persons from meeting in houses to propagate communism or Bolshevism. More recent debates have arisen in the context of labor relations and have challenged the ability of employees to form unions, to bargain collectively, and to strike. In this story, the Two Bears Rule sought to eliminate dissenting opinions of Iski's community. Forming organizations or meeting with more than two bears at one time was made illegal. When meetings were forbidden, the bears were unable to voice their opinions and form an effective opposition to the mayor's plan for the community. Iski's formation of Green Fleece, an association, and the meeting of the bears by the giant iceberg, which was an assembly, demonstrate the power of associating and assembling. The community is stronger when it is united as a collective. It is finally able to challenge the mayor's strict control of the town. Finally, it should be noted that the freedoms of assembly and association are closely related to the freedom of expression. Suppressing the freedoms of assembly and association can also suppress a collective's ability to express itself, thereby infringing upon freedom of expression. See a portrait of the artist as a young lobster for a demonstration of this overlap. So the questions for the children are, what is the Two Bears Rule? Why did the mayor create the Two Bears Rule? Why did Iski and Pekin organize a group of bears from their community, Green Fleece? Why couldn't the mayor stop Green Fleece from protesting? Why is the ability to meet and form groups important? There we go. This book was written or copyright printed in, I think it was published in 2012 by the DC Canada Education Publishing. So there we go. Thank you. Bye-bye. So the author is Dustin Milligan, and here is a photo of him. Dustin Milligan is a native of Tyne Valley, Prince Edward Island. He received a bachelor's degree with double honors in history and political science from the University of Ottawa and degrees in civil law and common law from McGill University.
He has worked in the field of constitutional advocacy and litigation in Canada, South Africa, and Burma. So